Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an all-new edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwood Community Programming. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and we've got a great program for you today. For this first half hour, I want to reintroduce somebody who's been on the program before, and it's Redman, who is a musician with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra and MOSO. And what makes Ellen kind of unique is she's one of Westfield's very own musicians, and she's brought along her colleague Reid, who will be performing a concert at the church in Blandford, the White Church, on May 7th. It launches their season this year, and if you've never been there, it's a fabulous performance space, not too far from here, just up on the, go up Route 20 to Route 23, and it's in the heart of Blandford. And it's a small church that has featured chamber music. It has an opera performance every summer, a variety of folk music, and Reid is bringing some of his Scottish music there May 7th. So welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you. I know that you've done a lot of music. You're going to have to tell us a little bit about your background, Ellen, but I've heard and seen you on the NPR program, A Prairie Home Companion.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I was in a band called Battlefield Band for several decades. And we started off as students in Glasgow at the University of Strathclyde. And myself and the fiddle player, Brian McNeil, who started the band, were the ones who, when we graduated, decided we're not ready for real jobs yet. We want to carry on playing music. So from modest beginnings, the band gradually grew. We started playing all over the UK and then Europe. And eventually we got to the States, and that was 1981, I think. And ever since then, up until COVID, I've been coming to the States regularly, at least once a year. So this is going to be my first tour of the US since 2019. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Have you ever performed at the White Church before, or is this new for you?
It's an absolutely new venue for me, but it sounds like as you said, it sounds like a really nice venue, and it looks like I'm going to be part of a fairly august program. So I feel privileged.
What kind of music are you going to do at this particular concert? Is it going to be like a retrospective of some of the great hits that you performed over the years, or new music, or a combination of both?
I don't know if I would call them hits, but it's going to be a variety of songs that I've either written myself over the years, including material that I did with Battlefield Band, and more recent material. So it will be, some of the songs will be like story songs. Some of them will be to do with either characters or events in Scottish history, especially the less well-known ones. I'm more interested in them than in the headline ones, as it were. So I'll be, as I say, I'll be telling stories. I'll be inviting the audience to join in at certain points, and I'll also be explaining any Scottish vocabulary that might be a wee bit of an obstacle for some people.
You say this is your first tour since the pandemic. Did you perform at all during the pandemic, or did you pretty much, like the rest of us, kind of maybe do some Zoom work and that's it?
I did several Zoom concerts. But I didn't play to a live audience until, gosh, I'm dredging my memory here now. I think maybe the end of 2021. So, like like for many musicians, in fact, many performers, the COVID just really shut us down. And 2021, 2022, I could almost count the number of concerts in my hands for each year. So it's only now that it's beginning to return to anything like normal. And I don't think it's quite normal yet, to be honest, in
I,
terms of both the number of concerts that I do and also the audiences. I think there are still members of the public that are still a wee bit wary of going out too much and mixing in crowds. And of course, in this country, the cost of living has gone up quite a lot. So a lot of people are suffering. And I imagine it's the same in the States.
yeah, and the other thing is, I don't know. I mean, from my personal experience, I missed live performance during the pandemic, either being a part of it or in the audience. And when I was allowed to go back to the concert hall and go into the theaters again, my perspective on things changed. I became more appreciative of the opportunity to perform or to be seen or just see a performance. I don't know if it's like that for you, but the song that you might have performed before the pandemic takes on a new meaning now when you have it's like a renaissance and having this chance, a second chance to do that before an audience.
Yeah, I think yes, I agree with you. I think that I really appreciated the opportunities I've had over my life to perform music performances. I'm sorry, that's our home phone going. We'll just ignore it. So it is great to be able to perform live. I didn't particularly like doing Zoom concerts because all I was doing was staring at a TV screen, and in live concerts I like to get some interaction, some kind of feedback. I want to know if the audiences are actually enjoying it. and smiling and stuff like that. So I found it hard.
Yeah. This is your first tour out since the pandemic. How many tour stops are you doing over the course of this tour?
Well, over the course of 3.5 weeks, I've got 14 concerts.
Wow.
But I'm, I don't want to run myself to the ground, so I'm giving myself, a few days off as well. And there are also some fairly long drives. So I'm trying to take care of myself.
Yeah, I certainly can relate to that. Ellen, what have you been up to this season? You were here last year, about a year ago, a chat about Moso and a concert that you were doing with them. What has your last year been like?
Well, as Alan said, it's starting to feel a little bit more like normal. But it's true, I see it in the symphony. The audiences are still a little bit hesitant to come back to the hall. It- People got out of the habit of going out to concerts and
Yeah.
also of staying up late at night. So like 9 o'clock feels like, oh, it's time for bed. It's if it ever does go back to normal, and who knows, we just may have to make um, adjustments to what an audience is willing to do and what they're not willing to do. But
Yeah, you're so right about that. The earlier this week, I went to cover the musical Tina, the Tina Turner musical in Hartford, and it was like date night. But I had to file the review and everything. But it was like date night, and I turned around to the person I was with, and I said, "My God, it's 9:15, and I'm yawning," and it didn't used to be like that. And I wondered whether I was getting old or whether I wasn't used to lying on a couch watching something, but I was actually dressed up in a theater. Our theater going and concert going habits have changed.
They really have. And although getting back to playing to live audiences, and I not only play the symphonic music but the Irish music, and had a lot of gigs over St. Patrick's week, and those were great. The energy was really good for those concerts. People really wanted to be there, and it's like a once a year kind of thing, so people were really up for it. But it was really gratifying to be able to experience that kind of energy again after a really long time. But it's these are strange times still. Music.
They are strange times, but there is something to be said for live performance, and I think we all learned this lesson during the pandemic. You can hear wonderful music on Zoom or YouTube or whatever, or your stereo systems, and you can watch a variety of plays and dance and opera and all the kinds of things you might not normally be able to get to from your couch. But when you're sitting in a theater and it's happening live and the musicians are on stage and there's that interaction, that energy between audience and musician, you can't replicate that in any other form.
No, and the spontaneity that can go back and forth between the audience and the performer, where the performance can sometimes just take a slightly different direction than maybe it was intended to, and it's a wonderful surprise, when that happens. I'm sure that's happened to you a lot, Alan.
Oh no, absolutely, and I feed off audiences, and sometimes if you've got an audience, there might be, let's say, a majority of them are a little bit reserved, but if there are even one or two people that are kind of like really get up and go and start clapping, it spreads. It's as if the rest of the audience are looking around and saying, "Hey, that's okay. We can enjoy ourselves. Come on, let's go." So that's that communal feeling that you can't get on Zoom.
Alan, when did you know growing up that you had to do music, and when did you realize that you could do music?
That's an interesting question. I had no great ambitions to be a musician, but I found myself going to university partly because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any, wonderful idea of what having a career. And unfortunately, when I finished my university degree, I still had no idea what I wanted to do. But as I say, I had joined this little group, which was basically an acoustic group at the time. It wasn't specifically a Scottish traditional band, the way that it evolved. And that's what happened. It evolved. So in my mid-20s, myself and Brian McNeil, the guy who started the band, we were having a discussion about what we're going to do. And we thought, you know what, let's see if we can just make maybe not a career. Let's try this music caper for a couple of years and see what happens. So and at that time there were too many teachers. We were both qualified teachers, so we thought, well, we'll try it for a couple of years, and if need be, we'll go back to teaching. But it didn't turn out that way. So in short, it was a happy accident. That's all I can say.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our underwriters. And when we come back, we're going to be chatting more with Alan Reid and Ellen Redman. Alan will be performing on May 7th at the White Church in Blandford, Massachusetts. And you can get ticket information on that at thewhitechurch.org. Ellen plays flute and piccolo with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. She also performs Irish music all over the map. We'll be back to chat more with them in just a moment, so don't go away.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here. Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. My guests today are Reid, Scottish folk singers coming to the White Church at Blandford, and Redman, who is with the Springfield Symphony and MOSO. And Ellen, I know that you perform Irish music on an ongoing basis here in the area. So if people want to catch you in concert, where are you going to be the next few weeks?
Well, I am always every Wednesday night co-hosting an Irish traditional session at the Irish Cultural Center of Western New England in West Springfield on Morgan Road. That goes from 6:30 to 9, and that's every Wednesday night. It's a fun time to come. You can come and play along if you play Irish music, or just listen and have a couple of pints and a burger or whatever at the pub. So I'll be doing that. I'll be playing with the Springfield Symphony this weekend. We've got a concert tomorrow night, which I think should be quite.
Well, actually, I know we're taping today, and there's a concert tomorrow night. But
that's true. All right.
Yeah, it's good. But
yeah,
there's a concert coming up in May, right?
Yes, there is. May. What is it? The I should know. The second weekend in May, I believe it is. Yeah, that's a bunch of things at Smith College, where I also teach at the end of May, or end of April, sorry, which will be before we are on broadcast. But anyway.
Do you get a break at all, Ellen? I mean, you seem to be running from one concert to another between the symphony and Wednesdays in West Springfield and Smith and all that. Do you get a break from music, or is it something you can't get away from?
It's very difficult to actually get away from it, because even if there's nothing going on, you still have to be practicing and keeping in shape, and you can sometimes take small breaks, but they're hard because you're always feeling like you should be practicing even though you're not. But the summers tend to be a little bit less crazy in terms of the running around, even though there's almost something always going on a weekly basis. But there's no real break for a musician.
Somebody asked me to ask you this, so I am. You're not from Westfield, but how did you end up in Westfield?
How did I? Well, I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. I auditioned back in the mid 80s and got the piccolo job in the Springfield Symphony. So I moved to Boston for a while, and then I also started teaching at Smith. And after commuting back and forth from Boston to Smith and to Springfield, I finally decided maybe it's time to just move a little bit closer to everything. So that's when I moved out to Westfield, and I've been here now it'll be 19 years.
And what is it about Westfield that intrigues you, or that makes you glad to call it home?
I'll tell you, I knew about Westfield because of the concerts that we used to play at Stanley Park. So I was sort of conscious, it was on my radar, and it was to be honest with you, it was more about finding the house that I'm in and falling in love with that and moving there, but also just knowing that it was a community that I knew I could live in and enjoy.
Alan, have you been to Western Massachusetts before?
I've driven through it. I played in Northampton several times. That's Western Mass, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just up the road from us. Yes.
And
Yep.
and you've been in Westfield,
Have I? Oops.
my house.
Oh,
right?
of course. No, I wasn't performing though.
No.
So how
Oh,
did,
yeah. The question was, had I been there? Yeah.
how did the two of you know each other? Did you perform together at one point, or did your paths just cross?
I'll let Ellen answer that one.
Well, I first met Alan at the Swananoa Gathering in North Carolina, although I had known of his work for a very long time. And the Swananoa Gathering has a Celtic week where student musicians and well-known instructors in Irish and Scottish and all kinds of Celtic music come together and spend a week learning from each other and performing and all of that. And so Alan and his wife were there one summer, and we got to know them. My husband was a huge Battlefield Band fan, so it was a real thrill for him, and we just became friends, and here we are.
Yeah, that's it.
Been about 9 years, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Ellen, you'll be at the White Church cheering Alan on.
You bet.
Have you been, Ellen? Have you been to the White Church for performances before?
I haven't, and I have wanted to, but it's one of those things, when there's something going on, I'm not free, and when I'm free, there's nothing going on. So I will be really looking forward to this. I know it's a gorgeous venue. Many of my colleagues have performed there and have said that they really enjoy it. So, and the area is lovely. People should think, it'll be a beautiful day in May. Come on out, bring a picnic, or beforehand, just enjoy the hill towns and have a gorgeous concert.
I had, as a child, we used to drive through Blandford because my parents had a summer cottage in East Otis for a while. And we used to pass the White Church all the time. I'd never gone. But last summer, the brass quintet from Moso performed there over Labor Day weekend, and I went up. And I was just intrigued by it's acoustically perfect. It's a very small church, maybe seats 200, 250 people at max. And there's not a bad seat in the place in terms of being able to see what's going on. But acoustically, you could stand on the stage and drop a pin and be able to, that you hear the pin hit the floor in the last row. I don't know how they built a building like that, but it's just such a great place to go hear music.
Well, you've sold that to me, Mark.
Yeah. Alan, do you prefer to perform your work in a small place like Blandford or in a larger concert hall?
Well, with Battlefield Band, we played some pretty big halls. But when I left the band, which was 2010, the performance spaces for me were scaled down, and I think I prefer actually an intimate type of venue where I can see the audience and just get an atmosphere. Sometimes that would be hard when you were in a large auditorium. And I remember disliking playing in a large hall where the lights were so bright that you couldn't see any faces. You were just staring into the dark. I like my audiences to be up close and personal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing, Ellen. I mean, you perform at the Springfield Symphony in a hall that seats 2,000 people, and then you perform at the Irish Cultural Center in a venue that maybe 150 people can be at one time. What's your preference?
They're two very different things, because when you're in a larger hall and there's this sort of large energy that you can feel, it's a, you know, this sort of entity, large entity, and you can feel that and work off of that. But then when you're at a smaller venue and you see individual faces and individual reactions to what you're doing, that's a whole different thing as well. And you can see sort of the immediate effect it's having on somebody's mindset or mood or whatever. So it's they're two very different things, but I can't say I like one more than the other, but when somebody comes up to you after a performance and you get a sense that you touched them as an individual, I think that's one of the greatest rewards.
Okay, Alan, give us a little rundown. If for people that might know your music, one or two songs that they can expect to hear on your concert at the White Church.
Gosh, well, there are several. I'll probably sing a song called "The Dear Green Place," which is my take on the history of the place where I was born, Glasgow. That's where I try to squash 1,100 years of history into 5 verses. I don't always do it, but I do it fairly frequently. And then there's another song that I do again most nights, but not every night, and it's called "The Pleasure Will Be Mine." And that's a romantic song, which has actually been taken up by several Irish musicians, and they changed one word in the song, and so I have this impression that for a lot of people they think it's an Irish song rather than a Scottish song, which kind of tickles me. So that's a romantic. So one's a romantic song, one's a historical song, and you know that's I do quite a lot of both.
Okay. We're out of time, and I want to thank both of you for being here today. Alan Reid will be performing on May 7th at the White Church in Blandford. You can get tickets and information for that from thewhitechurch.org. Ellen Redman is with the Springfield Symphony. You can see her in a couple of weeks at Springfield Symphony Orchestra Concert in Symphony Hall. That's springfieldsymphony.org. Or on Wednesday nights at the Irish Cultural Center in West Springfield. I don't know, do people have to order tickets to go to your Wednesday night gigs, or they just show up?
Just show up. It's we're just there, kind of in the background, as if you would just walk into any sort of bar or pub or restaurant. Sometimes it can be crowded and you might want to make a reservation, but most of the time you can just walk right in and you're just in the middle of everything.
So now you know where to see Alan and Ellen in the next couple of weeks. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you, Mark.
We'll be seeing you soon. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. We're going downriver to Goodspeed Musicals in East Haddam, Connecticut, and we're chatting with Donna, Lynn, Hilton, and talking about a really fabulous Goodspeed season, both in East Haddam and at their second theater in Chester, Connecticut. And what I'm really excited about is the quintessential American musical of all times opens the Goodspeed season, and that's Gypsy. And that is bookmark number one, and the season ends with another American musical classic, Dreamgirls. Donalyn, you have a great season up and coming.
Thank you, Mark. We're really excited about it. In addition to being a great season, it's our 60th anniversary season, which is a real milestone. So we're thrilled about what's coming up.
I interviewed the people from Hartford Stage, and their 60th is also coming up.
Yeah.
Was it a period of time going back that that regional theaters bloomed in America?
Yes, absolutely. In the early to mid 60s, so many regional theaters were inaugurated in those years, and so we celebrate that anniversary with a lot of really exceptional colleagues all across the country.
This season up and coming, which opens with Gypsy, is one that you've curated from beginning to end without a pandemic, and without having to take into consideration that COVID was going to restrict the numbers of people you could have on stage and what kind of productions and all that. What made you choose Gypsy and Dreamgirls plus the two in between for a 60th anniversary celebration?
Yeah, we had a great year coming back in 2022, did better than we dreamed we would do. We ended up at 82% capacity on the season last year, which was a really phenomenal recovery. But I think we did that because we made a conscious decision to return as quickly as possible to be in the Goodspeed our audiences expected us to be. And I think that carries through into programming this season. Gypsy is a title that, as you alluded to in the introduction, I think it is possibly the best piece of musical theater ever written. No offense to a lot of other great pieces, but I just think it is right there at the top. It's a great play to begin with, and then you add Julie Stein's incredible score to it, and it's just a really great piece of theater. It is a bucket list show for Jen Thompson, who is directing the piece for us, and she came to me with a very short list of shows last year. Gypsy was right at the top of it. We were able to break the rights loose, which has been a little bit difficult for us to do for a number of years, and so we grabbed the opportunity to do it right away. Dreamgirls, at the other end of the season, will open in the late fall, is a show that is a real touch point for me as a musical theater artist. It is one of the first Broadway shows I ever saw. I still remember starting the standing ovation at the end of Act One when Jennifer Holliday performed "And I Am Telling You I'm Not Leaving, Not Going." And it's just to be in the position to be able to program it at Goodspeed, to assign to direct it the fabulous Lillian Brown, who came up in the storefront theater experience in the Chicago area, has won multiple Jeff Awards for new musical development. It was just a really wonderful opportunity to bring her to Goodspeed for the first time. And then Summer Stock and the 12, which are the second and third shows of the season, both new works, one which is familiar to many people from the Judy Garland, Gene Kelly film, but which is a completely new adaptation with a book by Sherry Steinkellner and musical arrangements by Doug Besterman, who many in the audience will know from his work on Schmigadoon most recently, is just although a new musical is going to feel and look and dance like a classic golden age piece of musical theater. And the 12, I think, is the piece in the show that is going to challenge all of us a little bit more. It is a wonderful new musical by Robert Shankin and Neil Berg. Robert won the Pulitzer for the Kentucky Cycle when I was much younger. Neil is a wonderful composer who has traveled the country with a series of Broadway concerts that he does with orchestras and symphonies, but is also a wonderful composer. And the piece is being directed by John Doyle, who of course the audience will know from his multiple Tony Awards and nominations. He the Sweeney Todd revival with Patti LuPone, the Color Purple revival most recently were his big Broadway hits. And so it's I think a really exciting season. It speaks to, I think, the future of Goodspeed in that we're going to continue to produce and present the best of the classic canon, but we're also going to push our envelope by continuing to develop and present exciting, joyful, entertaining new work that occasionally challenges our audiences to consider a slightly more deep experience with the theater.
And as we're talking about Goodspeed, those of you that are listening or watching that want to learn more about what's going on at Goodspeed, go to their website at goodspeed.org. And you may think, well, gee, it's very far away, but it's really from Springfield. It's maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And it's in the most beautiful part of the Connecticut River, just where the river widens as it goes towards the Sound. It's a great place to go. I love going early and just sitting there on the lawn and watching the swing bridge, which is you see it is going. That's a famous bridge, open for the boats to go up and down the river. It just to me is a great getaway, even though it's an hour away.
Yeah, we say make it a Goodspeed day. You will not regret the drive down. It is an easy drive right down 91, head off onto Route 9 for a few exits and you're here. And come early, pack a picnic and have a picnic on the Goodspeed lawn, or the beautiful Gelston House is right next door to us with a beautiful outdoor dining area, and just make a whole day of it. You will not regret it.
It doesn't make a difference to me whether it's spring, summer, fall, or oddly enough, winter, but I think that there's something to be said about East Haddam any time of the year.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. And we have, for people who are outdoor enthusiasts as well, we have beautiful hiking trails, so much open space and land conservation space here in East Haddam. It's a beautiful community.
And talk a little bit about the two shows that you're doing at Chester, because Chester's been dark for a while. So it's nice to know that the second theater is coming back.
Yes, our second stage, the Terrace Theater in Chester, Connecticut, just one exit further down Route 9. It has been dark since Christmas of 2019. So we are really thrilled to be able to reopen it. Chose not to reopen yet because we knew that it took everything we had to produce our spectacular season at the Opera House last year, but staffing is feeling much more robust. We have a lot of great new team members at Goodspeed, and so we're really excited to reopen the Terrace with two productions this year. One of them, Here You Come Again, features the music of the great Dolly Parton. Who does not love Dolly Parton? And it's a really wonderful story about a guy who went home to live in his parents' attic during the pandemic and has some personal challenges that he has to resolve. And Dolly appears to him out of a poster, and through much of her wonderful, inspiring song, helps him get his life back on track. And then the second piece is something I'm equally excited about. It is a piece that has been in development with Goodspeed since early 2019. It was begun at our Johnny Mercer Foundation Writers Grove, developed through our Festival of New Musicals. We've done further workshop of it since we reopened, and that is Private Jones. It is the story of a deaf World War I Welsh sniper who made it through the war without hearing and largely hiding his hearing impairment from his military supervisors. It's a really inspiring story, and also gives us the opportunity to put 3 deaf or hearing impaired, hard of hearing actors on our stage and really examine a whole new way of developing musical theater. It's going to be a really exciting piece that uses sound Foley, some projection, a lot of artistic sign language as well as American Sign Language to tell the story of Gomer Jones' travel through World War I. And it's by Marshall Palett. I should not forget the brilliant artist who has written it. Marshall is just a visionary artist. He has written book music and lyrics and will be directing the show as well.
Now, with some of the shows, like the newer ones, like Summer Stock, which is the adaptation of the film, do you have expectations that it might go on? I mean, the last film kind of adaptation of a stage musical, I believe, was Irving Berlin's Holiday Inn, and it went right to Broadway.
Yes,
From
yes.
Goodspeed.
I mean, we certainly hope that will happen. It's a really popular title. It is, like I say, it feels like a classic golden age musical. It's really well written. The book by Sherry Steinkellner, who was one of the writers of Sister Act, that much of your audience will have seen on Broadway or since it's been in licensing elsewhere. And the musical arrangements, classic songs from the musical theater canon, but arranged and orchestrated by our wonderful Doug Besterman, who's got just some incredible credits. And it just feels fresh and new. It's being directed and choreographed by Donna, who works a lot at the Stratford Festival. She's relatively new to American audiences, but her choreography is going to be some of the most thrilling we've had on Goodspeed stage in a long time. Just some really wonderful dancing. And so, yeah, we hope it moves on. And based on how work is going so far, we're headed into another workshop in New York next week for the piece. And based on how work is going so far, I have really high hopes for it. But there's no current plan in place.
How do you put so much dance and musical theater on such a small stage? I mean, I've covered Goodspeed probably on and off for 30 years, but I ran down last fall to see 42nd Street. I couldn't believe you could take a big show like that and condense it and put it on a small stage, but it still felt like it was a super huge show.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's precision. Precision is how we do it. It is a very small space. The stage is 21 feet deep and 28 feet wide, I believe. But as you experienced last year with 42nd Street, and I hope a lot of your audience did as well, because that show was packing them in. We do really amazing things on this space. And I think that's sort of the secret of our success, is that so much energy comes off of that stage into that small auditorium that it sort of overwhelms the audience. But precision is how we do it. A lot of rehearsal, a lot of detail, and a lot of precision. Here, when you have to be here, you have to be here, and no one else can be in that spot. And backstage as well. We often say there's as much choreography going on backstage as there is going on stage in a Goodspeed musical.
I interviewed a couple of weeks ago David Kidwell, who's the music director and the conductor for the Holyoke Civic Symphony. Mm-hmm. And he oftentimes plays second keyboard at Goodspeed. Yes. And he was talking about 42nd Street. He was the musician that was in the green room outside the pit because there wasn't enough room for all the musicians. And he said he never saw the show except through a monitor. And he said you wouldn't believe how a small theater like Goodspeed, it was like a traffic jam. You could not move out of step in one place because you get knocked over with everybody running around.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, David was set up in the green room 3 floors below the stage. The rest of the band was in the pit, but the second keyboard was set up in a box in the green room 3 floors below, and I would walk by and peep in at them just playing away. They'd get earphones on. You can't hear a thing. But it's rare. I can't remember what the details of that orchestration were that meant we didn't have room to fit that keyboard in the pit, but we did not.
When you look at the season that you've lined up, I mean, obviously you've worked in theater for a long time, and you are the director, so you have to make sure that budgets are taken into consideration and available talent. But of the upcoming season, is there one musical that is to you a personal favorite that you've always wanted to do that you say, wow, I'm glad we're finally doing it?
That's hard. That's like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Yeah.
Because they're all really special. Like I say, Gypsy is such a beautiful show. It is such a great play. I love it. I've been in and out of the rehearsal hall a lot. It's in rehearsal right now. And I just love being there and hearing it and just experiencing that really tight, really beautiful book that Arthur Lawrence wrote. It's a favorite. summer stock, the process of summer stock, taking a classic film and bringing it onto the Goodspeed stage, putting it in front of our audience for the very first time, much like Holiday Inn, it is such a gift to be in a position to be able to do that, and to support and guide that work is just a gift. So I love that process. I have known about the 12 since 2013 when the composer first presented it to me. I had such a visceral reaction to that piece. It moved me as not a lot of theater does. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to put that in front of our audience and to welcome John Doyle to Goodspeed for the first time. And then Dreamgirls, was a moment in my life. I just adore that show. And if you wanted me to sing the whole score to you right now, I could do it. I won't, but I could. And so, it's just really hard. I think I'm just really excited about the whole season. And we have to talk about our gala.
I was going to say that you've got Dreamgirls, but Jennifer Holliday, who burst into stardom, is going to star at the Goodspeed Gala.
Yes, she is. She's going to do a full set for us. Jennifer, who originated the role of Effie White on Broadway, played it for most of the run, is going to sing at our gala. She's going to do a 45-minute to 1 hour long set in the Goodspeed Opera House. She'll be performing some songs from Dreamgirls, as well as some of the material that she's known for in more recent years. It's going to be phenomenal. And when I reached out to Jennifer, made the connection, she's been just incredible to work with. And I said to her, I got a little emotional talking to her because I still remember that moment when she was delivering that incredible performance as Effie in Dreamgirls. And I don't, there are not many performances like that in the history of musical theater.
I went to see Dreamgirls the second night that it played in New York. I didn't know, except I had a friend who said, well, Michael Bennett's directing it and, he's really good. So let's get tickets now for it before it opens. And to see that performance, it's probably one of the 10 performances I will never forget that I've ever seen.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I said to Jennifer, I've been chasing that high the rest of my life. That was just once in a lifetime.
We got to take a very quick break here to acknowledge our underwriters. And while we do, check out Goodspeed's website at goodspeed.org to find out more about the season. And we'll be back to talk more about Goodspeed. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. We're talking with Donna Lynn Hilton, who is the artistic director of Goodspeed Musicals with 2 theaters in East Haddam and Chester, Connecticut, just downriver. The Opera House itself in East Haddam is presenting 4 shows this year, including the All-American Classic Gypsy and another All-American Classic Dreamgirls with 2 other works in between, which could become American classics. And then at Chester, across the river, 2 completely new works, one based on the music of Dolly Parton, and it's, I believe, written by Bruce Valanche, and directed by Gabriel Barry, who has directed many shows at Goodspeed. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. Bruce worked with us on another project. I'm blanking. A Sign of the Times, which some of our Terrace audience may have seen. And he's a funny guy. has just written a really delightful story. Just feel good with those great Dolly Parton country tunes. It's just a really feel good piece.
So a show like this that you're doing in Chester, when did the show come to you? When did somebody say, would you like to do it? And how long has it been in development before it actually makes it to the stage?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So Here You Come Again is actually a co-production with 5 other theaters. It began its life as a commission from Florida Studio Theater in Sarasota, Florida. During the pandemic, they took some of their COVID recovery money and commissioned some artists to write. And one of those pieces is where Here You Come Again originated. And I first heard the piece during a Zoom reading in late 2020. Gabe Barry, who has directed many pieces for Goodspeed and appeared as an actor originally on the Goodspeed stage, invited me to a Zoom reading. You know, we were so zoomed out at the time. We're all so fearful about what was going on with COVID. This was before the vaccine and all of that. And despite participating in that reading via Zoom, I had such a great time. I was so engaged. I was so moved. I was doing a lot of Zoom work at the time, and not much was cutting through to actually touch me. So I went, okay, well, I need to pay a little bit of attention to this. I didn't have the job that I have now at the time. But later, after I was in this seat, Gabe came back, and he was working with the Delaware Theater Company in Wilmington, Delaware, to put together a production that would then play several theaters. So the show opened last September, I think it was, in Delaware. It has played a theater in Texas. It played the Pittsburgh CLO over the holidays. It is currently about to open at Studio 10 outside in Franklin, Tennessee, outside Nashville, and then it will come to Goodspeed. So, one of the reasons that it made, in addition to being a great piece that I was really excited about, it made a lot of sense to be able to share the cost of building and rehearsing the show with those other theaters, which also made it possible for us to run the show for longer because we have a good idea of what we're dealing with. I saw the show last September, so the show's actually going to run for 5 weeks here at Goodspeed. But it has been in development since 2020.
So will the show have the same cast and production that it has in these other theaters when it comes to Goodspeed?
It has the same production. The show was built in Delaware with the intention that it would travel to these other theaters. Goodspeed is currently the last stop, although my understanding is there's some conversation about other theaters being interested in producing it. Audiences are loving it at the other locations that it's played. It stars an actress named Trisha Paluccio, who has had a lifelong love affair with Dolly Parton. She, since childhood, has just been a fan of Dolly Parton and her music. And during the pandemic, when this opportunity came up to commission something, she said to Gabe Barry, the director, who happens to be her husband, I've always wanted to see if I could tell a Dolly story. And so they started putting it together. The only other character is a character named Kevin, who has been played by a couple or several different gentlemen in the development of the piece.
So as this piece is developing and you're working with the other theaters, you have to take into consideration that Goodspeed at Chester's a very small theater, and it might be playing in another theater that's 4 times the size. So do the sets and the costumes have to be, and lighting and sound have to be reconfigured theater by theater?
There's proving to be some adjustment that has to be made for each theater, but for the most part, by the time the set was finalized, the set designer, Anna Luizos, knew which spaces had signed on to produce the show. So she was able to actually put the show into each theater's ground plan and make sure that the pieces worked. Now, there have been some surprises, as there are bound to be, but it actually it's a very unit set, travels on the back of one truck. So it's been a pretty reasonable transition from one theater to the other.
Well, I have to say I'm looking forward to that, but of course I'm looking forward to all of them. I can't choose which ones I want to go to first. Although I got to say that Gypsy is a show that I have probably seen 10 different productions of Gypsy in my lifetime, and I never tire of seeing it. So people that have seen it before, it has the role of a lifetime in it, the role of Mama Rose. And I wish I had been alive to see Ethel Merman originate the role, but Patti LuPone did a fine job in my book.
She did. And Tyne Daly before that, I did see that Tyne Daly production as well, and she was phenomenal. And in our production, Judy McLean plays Mama Rose. Many of the audience will know Judy from her long run in Mamma Mia. If you see her face, you'll say, oh yeah, I know her. And she's just a wonderful actress. She's got a killer voice. She's just giving everything that she has to this role. She's so excited to be doing it. Apparently it had been a bit of a bucket list role for her as well. And she's just thrilling in the role. I've been in rehearsal a lot. The dynamic between Judy, Philip Hernandez, who plays Herbie, and Talia Suskauer, who plays Louise, is just phenomenal. They've just clicked, and really wonderful stuff is happening in the room. And I think for people who have seen Gypsy before, I always maintain you haven't seen Goodspeed do Gypsy. And that's my job. But also, I think that a play as good as the Gypsy play is revealed in a very different way on a stage as intimate as Goodspeed's, right? And people see things and hear things they may have never had the opportunity to see and hear in a production of Gypsy, just because of the proximity to the action on stage.
And somebody said to me that it shows that are about backstage musical, or shows within the shows, are the most beloved musicals that we have, like 42nd Street or Dreamgirls, which takes place behind the scenes, or Gypsy. And it takes the fable of the world of the theater and puts it into real life, and vice versa.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I think we're all intrigued about the whole concept of the show must go on. 42nd Street, will it happen? Will it not? In Gypsy, will Gypsy break away from her mother the way Baby June did and became June Havoc, the actor? Or in Dreamgirls, will Effie make it on her own? She was, and be able to have the comeback that she deserves. It's those Cinderella stories that we all grow up with and really love, that are just transformed when they're done as a musical within a musical.
Yeah. Well, and Summer Stock is the same. Summer Stock is a play within a play as well. Yeah. Excellent.
So before we go, on your bucket list of shows you'd like to see Goodspeed do in the next few years, is there a show that's been in the back of your mind that if somebody would say, I'll pay for whatever it costs to make it happen? Are there a couple of shows, Donna, that you really have to do?
I really want to do Crazy for You. Really want to do that show. There's been a commercial option on it for a long time, and we're close enough to New York that we can't get those rights. Oh God, I'm going to get off of this call and say, why didn't I think of? Because there are shows we talk about so often, and I'm drawing a blank other than Crazy for You. I want at some point to see Goodspeed produce Come From Away, which you may remember, Mark, made its American debut on our stage as a Festival of New Musicals presentation in 2013. I would love to see that piece come home to Goodspeed. Not sure when we'll be able to do that, but I would love to do it.
And one other question. I mean, you've produced, not you personally, but Goodspeed over its 60 years has sent so many shows to Broadway: Man of La Mancha, Annie, Shenandoah, Holiday Inn, and a whole slew of others. If you could go back into the canon of what Goodspeed's done over its 60 years, is there one show from the history of Goodspeed that you think you'd like to bring back?
We will bring Annie back for sure. Yeah. Annie has its 50th anniversary at Goodspeed in 2026. I'd really like to think that we could make that happen.
It's amazing to think that it's 50 years old, because that just makes me feel really old.
We're not as young as we used to be.
We're not. Well, Donna, thanks so much for being here today. We've been chatting with Donna and Hilton from Goodspeed Musicals, and I hope you all get to go to Goodspeed this season. You can get ticket information at goodspeed.org. And we're going to leave you today with a song from Gypsy, because Gypsy is, as many people say, the quintessential American musical. Music by Julie Stein, lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, book by Arthur Lawrence, and it was probably the most famous musical that Ethel Merman ever did. It gets revived every couple of years, and I think if there's a role, for example, in the theater like Lady Macbeth that all actors want to play, the role of Mama Rose is something that most people want to perform. Donna, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's always a pleasure.
And that wraps up another edition of Artsbeat. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next week.
Anybody that stays home is dead. If I die, it won't be from sitting. It'll be from fighting to get up and get out. Some people can get a thrill knitting sweaters and sitting still. That's okay for some people who don't know they're alive. Some people can thrive and bloom, living life in a living room. That's perfect for some people of 105. But I at least gotta try. When I think of all the sights that I gotta see, at all the places I gotta play, all the things that I gotta be, at Mama, Papa, what do you say? Some people can be content playing bingo and paying rent. That's PG for some people, for some humdrum people to be. But some people ain't me. I had a dream, a wonderful dream, Papa. All about tuning the Orpheum circuit. Give me a chance and I know I can work it. I had a dream, just as real as can be, Papa. There I was in Mr. Orpheum's office, and he was saying to me, Rose, get yourself some new orchestrations, new routines and red velvet curtains. Get a feathered hat for the baby, photographs in front of the theater. Get an agent, and in jig time you'll be being booked in the big time. Oh, what a dream, a wonderful dream, Papa. And all that I need is $88, Papa. That's what he said, Papa. Only $88.
You ain't getting 88 cents from me, Rose.
Then I'll get it someplace else, but I'll get it and get my kids out. Goodbye to blueberry pie. Good riddance to all the socials I had to go to, all the lodges I had to play, all the Shriners I said hello to. Hey, LA, I'm coming your way. Some people sit on their butts, got the dream, yeah, but not the guts. That's living for some people, for some